When Edgar Cayce was asked how to recognize a soul that had already lived once, he didn't respond with terms or philosophy, but with stories. Quiet, like the whisper of dreams. He spoke of signs, the kind you feel on your skin but can't explain, the kind that make you stop on the street, looking into a stranger's eyes and think, I know you, but from where? Right now you're reading, or perhaps listening, and maybe something inside is already responding. Don't rush. This isn't a text with answers. It's a path to memory, to memories that aren't stored in the brain, but live in the soul. Have you ever arrived in a new place, another city, even a country, and suddenly felt, I've been here? It seems that around that corner there's a house. Here once there was a market. Or you hear a foreign language and understand it, as if you've always known it, but logic says impossible. And the soul remains silent. It just knows. That is the first sign. Cayce called it a flash of memory beyond time. And if you just remembered even one such moment, perhaps you are not in your first incarnation. But there are other signs. More subtle. They appear in how you feel people, not how they act, but who they are. You look at a person, and it's as if you see deeper, through the masks, through the words, through the appearance. You feel their pain, even if they are smiling. You hear their anxiety, even if their voice is calm. That is the second, heightened empathy. Not the kind taught in courses, but inborn, the kind that can exhaust you if you don't protect yourself. Cayce said, old souls often suffer from pain that isn't their own, because they can't pass by, because inside there is the memory of what it's like, to lose, to forgive, to struggle, and to die. Many times. Have you ever cried over a film where seemingly nothing tragic happened, or felt tears in your eyes from music without words? Not from sadness, but from some ancient recognition. If so, you've already heard the echo of your past lives. But there is also a third sign. It appears as a sense of not belonging, as if you are not quite from here, as though this entire world is not entirely yours. You know how to live in it, adapt, even achieve success. But deep inside there is a sense, this is temporary, I'm a guest here. Cayce called this the return syndrome, when a soul, after many incarnations, comes with a mission, but cannot forget home, and then it longs, even in joy. If you just felt that I'm describing something very personal, don't be surprised. This isn't about millions. It's about those who feel, who remember without memory, who know without knowing why. There is also a fourth sign, and it is the most challenging. It is the thirst for questions. Surface-level answers aren't enough for you. That's just how it is, or everyone lives like that, doesn't satisfy you. You seek deeper. You wonder why you're here, what happens after, why dreams are so vivid, why sometimes you see things that cannot be. If you're not afraid of these questions, you are already on the path. Cayce said, the true maturity of a soul is revealed in its thirst for meaning. Sometimes you catch yourself feeling like you've lived something before, as if the scene has already happened. The people were there, the conversations, word for word. It's not just déjà vu. It's a sense of repetition, but not accidental, but meaningful. As if life is saying, this is your chance. Last time you chose differently. And now, what will you do? Edgar Cayce claimed that the soul repeats lessons that were not learned, and so situations return, in different clothes, in a different setting, but with the same essence, conflicts with parents, betrayals, fear of loss, unfinished relationships. These are not punishments. They are opportunities to complete what was once left in the shadows. The fifth sign, a strange attraction to certain eras. You may be drawn to ancient Egypt, to the Middle Ages, to a culture you've never lived in but feel is familiar. You see an old engraving, and you know what was happening there. You read about a war, and your heart aches as if you were there. Cayce said, "Old souls don't remember dates, they remember feelings. Sometimes through dreams, sometimes through fears that have no explanation. Fear of water, fire, heights, loneliness, maybe echoes of past deaths. The soul does not forget pain, but healing comes through it. And the sixth sign, inner wisdom that you cannot explain. From an early age, you feel like you already know. You don't need to make 100 mistakes to understand. You just need to see, and you feel how it will be. People ask you for advice, even though you don't present yourself as a mentor. They just sense, you know, because you've already been. If you've always felt older than your years, even as a child, this may be a trace of that very memory that does not die with the body. The soul carries all experience within itself, and when that experience awakens, a person changes, becomes quieter, deeper. The present becomes more important than the external. But here comes the challenge, because old souls often face loneliness, not because they are unloved, but because they are unheard. It's hard for them to be in crowds. They sense falseness. They don't know how to pretend, and often they choose solitude, nature, books, music, or silence, because within it is the voice of the one who came before you, and who is you. The seventh sign, a pull toward the spiritual. Not religiosity as a system, but a desire to understand what lies beyond. Such people intuitively feel where truth is. They see when someone speaks in the name of truth but acts out of fear. And they don't impose, don't argue. They simply know. Cayce wrote, "If you're searching for the source, you're already closer to it than those who are sure they know the way." The paradox is that the older the soul, the less it wants to argue. It learns to accept, to see essence behind form, light behind words. And if you recognized yourself in even half of this, don't rush to conclusions. Just ask yourself one question: what if I really have been here before? Not for proof, but to remember. If you truly are not here for the first time, then many things begin to make sense. Strange fears that no one could explain. Your yearning for justice as if you've already seen what happens when it's absent. Your inner anxiety that time is passing and you still haven't done the most important thing. Where does it all come from? Edgar Cayce said, "We return until we learn to love." Not just to attach, not to depend, not to demand, but to love. Purely, unconditionally, without fear of losing. The soul returns to learn the most important thing, and each time it gets a chance, a new script, a new role, but with the same task. The eighth sign, meetings that change everything. You suddenly see a person, and you know they will be important. You don't know why, don't know how, but you feel it, as if you were once together, loved, lost, promised to return. Souls recognize each other. Even if the mind doubts, the heart remembers. Sometimes relationships form rapidly, or, on the contrary, painfully. But in these connections there is always something more. As if you agreed before birth, you will find me and remind me. Sometimes it's love, sometimes it's pain, but the essence is the same, awakening. Cayce emphasized, karma is not punishment but continuation. What we did not complete waits for us ahead, not to take revenge, but to heal. If you feel that something is happening to you for a reason, ask, what is this teaching me? And then you'll see. Pain didn't come to destroy. It is a guide, like a door behind which lies freedom. The ninth sign, accelerated maturity. These souls often lose something important at an early age. A parent, safety, loyalty, illusions. They seem to be forced to grow up early, to learn to rely on themselves. And it may seem cruel, but deep inside, it is preparation, so that at the right moment, they remember who they are. These people have felt since childhood that they cannot live like everyone else. They're not drawn to common games, idle talk, or status contests. They're attracted to meaning, to stories, to depth. They often remain silent. Listen, and then say one thing, but with precision, because they feel, not just think, and if you are one of them, you know how hard it is to be misunderstood. You're called strange, withdrawn in your own world, but perhaps within you is a memory that hasn't fully awakened yet, like an ancient book whose pages are just beginning to turn. Cayce wrote, "The greatest thing one can do is remember who they are and live in harmony with it. But memory doesn't return by force. It unfolds through choice. When you choose not to retaliate but to understand, not to run away but to stay, not to be silent but to speak, or the opposite, to remain silent when once you would have shouted. If you feel that there's more inside you than you can put into words, this is the 10th and perhaps the most important sign. Because a soul that has lived many lives doesn't rush to shout about itself. It simply shines, even when it's dark. Sometimes you look up at the sky and suddenly feel a strange longing, but not for a person, not for a place, but for something you can't name. You miss something vast, warm, real, and you can't explain it to anyone. This is the 11th sign. Edgar Cayce said, "The soul remembers home." And sometimes longing is not depression. It's a call, a reminder. We come into this world having forgotten where we came from. But the soul still whispers, in dreams, in music, in those random moments when everything inside suddenly goes quiet. And it's precisely then that we remember we were part of something greater, and we will be again. The 12th sign, a thirst for truth. Superficial answers don't satisfy you. Phrases like, "Everything will be fine," "just live," aren't enough. You seek depth. You read. You listen. You think. And the more you learn, the more you realize how little you know. This isn't pride, it's maturity. A soul that has lived more than one life doesn't boast. It searches. Cayce believed that the soul comes with questions, and all of life is the search for answers. Not external ones, but internal. Answers that can only be heard in silence, when you are alone, when you are honest, when you're not hiding behind roles, work, or relationships. It's in those moments that the soul speaks. The 13th sign, the sense that you have a mission, unexplainable, but steady. You might not know exactly what you're supposed to do, but you know you can't just live like everyone else. You have a kind of inner compass that won't let you stray too far. And every time you do, you feel off. As if your body itself says, "This isn't yours." These people don't always become famous. They're not always on a stage. But they have an inner stage, a space where the real work takes place. And if you feel that you're meant to be useful, to leave something behind, to support someone, don't ignore it. It might be a call not just from today's you, but from the echo of past incarnations. The 14th sign, love for the world, no matter what. You might be tired, disappointed, but you still see beauty in the details, in random gestures, in a child's laughter, in an old tree, in the smell after rain. A soul that has lived through much doesn't become cynical. It becomes grateful. Cayce wrote that gratitude is one of the signs of awakening, not when you say thank you out of habit, but when your heart suddenly tightens with the realization, I am here, I'm alive, I feel, even if it hurts. That too is part of the path, and you accept it, without war, without resistance. The 15th sign is when you hear words like these, and feel, this is about me, this isn't information, it's a response, as if someone opened a door in you that had long been closed, and you can't explain it. But you know it's true, it's yours, because the soul recognizes, not through proof, but through silence, through vibration, through tears that rise from a simple paragraph, or chills that run through your body from a single sentence. That's not a coincidence. That is memory, yours, true. And now you're reading this and thinking, what if it's all true? What if my soul really isn't here for the first time? And if inside there is silence, if your heart skips a beat, if a lump forms in your throat, that's the answer. Edgar Cayce said, truth does not need proof, it simply resonates within. And if you feel that resonance, maybe you already know more than you think. The 16th sign, recurring dreams. The same images, places you've never been, but know in detail. People you've never met, but love, or fear. This isn't just the mind playing games. These are traces, echoes, keys your soul left for itself. The 17th sign, an inexplicable fear of water, of fire, of loneliness, sometimes of a particular person. You might not know where it comes from, but the body remembers. The soul remembers. Cayce claimed that some fears are wounds brought from past lives, and only awareness can heal them. The 18th sign, a drive to serve. You can't remain indifferent. You suffer when you see someone else's pain, not because you're weak, but because you remember what it feels like. A soul that has returned more than once often comes to help. Sometimes with a single word, sometimes just by being there. Its energy heals, calms, guides. The 19th sign, accelerated maturity. You've always been beyond your years, drawn to books, meanings, questions others didn't think to ask. Maybe in childhood you felt lonely, misunderstood, but not because you were strange, because you were older, deeper, more ancient. And finally, the 20th sign, that moment when you read this text and suddenly feel a tear or a smile or a sense that you've remembered something, not with your mind, with your soul. In those moments, you're not just reading, you are awakening. You see, no one can prove to you who you were, and that's not the point. What matters is who you are becoming now. If you feel the call within you, follow it. Don't be afraid. Truth is always near. It doesn't shout. It waits. In silence, in the heart, in memory. Cayce said, we are all travelers, and every step here is a continuation of what came before. We don't meet for the first time. We learn, we remember, and one day we awaken. Maybe you're reading this in the evening, or at night, or on a bus. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you're reading, that you've made it to this moment, and that means you're ready for the question, for the answer, for the memory. You are not a coincidence. You are not a mistake. You are not just a body. You are a soul, with a story, with pain, with power, and you are here for a reason. If you felt this, then it's for you. If this text resonated, leave a like. Write in the comments if you recognized yourself. Subscribe if you want to hear more, because there are many more stories ahead that touch the deepest part of you. And most importantly, remember, the soul knows the way. You don't need to search for it. You only need to remember.